Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel McCusker. I'm a K-5 music educator and the teacher member of the Maryland State Board of Education. It's my privilege this evening to welcome our current local school system teachers of the year and to welcome Global Teacher Prize winner Kisha Thorpe to our teacher roundtable this evening. Our roundtable this evening will be a broad, well-rounded discussion focused on the education experience and future of education in the state of Maryland. MSDE and the State Board are developing a strategic plan for strengthening education in Maryland using the blueprint for Maryland's future as a framework. To help us focus our planning work, we want to hear from a cadre of our strongest teachers from around the state. We want to know what's next, what's working, what do you need help with to have your students and school communities thrive? What are teachers thinking about the future of education? And what role can MSDE play in supporting those future successes? We know that education is fraught with challenges right now, but our hope is that these conversations will help us lay the groundwork to tackle the challenges and move forward towards a vision of excellence and innovation for every child in every school across the state. Before we get started, I'd like to just very quickly go over just a few ground rules and housekeeping items. First, we want to hear from everyone. So we're going to try to keep things in a conversational style format. We have a lot of areas to cover this evening. So I'll be asking questions as we move forward and asking for your feedback. And you'll also have the opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Chaudhry and me. We've also asked other educators for questions or topic areas. So as you can imagine, those things are going to have a bit of overlap, but we're going to try to cover as much as we can in the time that's allotted for today. This event is also being recorded and live streamed, so your participation implies consent to be recorded. When you're not speaking, please stay muted, and I will do my best to look for raised hands, and feel free to use the chat function. We're going to have staff helping me to keep track of who has their hands up and helping me to monitor that. So thank you for helping to keep our conversation moving along smoothly. Joining us for our conversation this evening is our new state superintendent, Mr. Mohammed Chaudhry. Good evening, Mr. Chaudhry. Will you please kick us off with some opening remarks and invite our panel to introduce themselves?
Good evening. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you guys for being here today. I know it's, it fell on a Monday after the break, but I really appreciate you guys making the time, especially being able to do it virtual helps. Just so you guys know, this is one of many, many, many engagement points for me. It's really important to me that the department expands the tent. And so I know I'm starting with the rock stars that are the teacher of the year. But after this, I'm going to have an ask of you guys. I want you to help me put together a group of first-year teachers, and I want you to help me put together a group of teachers who are still growing in their craft. I want to constantly expand the tent. I said it when I first arrived. I'm going to say it again. I want to engage the heck out of everyone. I want to get in trouble for engaging too much, frankly. And I want to keep going because that's how we're going to understand to get implementation right, to get policy right, to get resource allocation right, and to really understand what happens each and every day. You are the most important adult in front of kids every single day. Just right outside of you is your principal, but you truly are. I mean, that's just decades of research prove that. And you change the lives of our kids every single day. And it's very, very important that as policymakers who, sit outside of that space, we understand what the dynamics are, and so we can get it right. And so this is one of many conversations. Like I said, I'm starting off with you guys, but I'm not only going to talk to you guys. So that's another thing I want to point out is, right, like I said, like I'm not just going to listen to a small handful of folks. I'm going to look at what people are saying on the ground and across our state. And so this is something that I'm really excited about. So 5 months in, I'm really excited to continue to engage and learn more about Maryland, learn about your schools, learn about your region, and also what's on your mind. Thank you so much. And with that, we can start, Rachel.
Thank you. And I think we'll begin this evening by having our Teachers of the Year and our Global Prize winner introduce themselves. So if you could introduce yourself with your name, your county, and your school, what you teach and your grade, just briefly. And we'll go through in alphabetical order by county. So we're going to start those introductions with Anne Arundel County and move through from there. So can our Anne Arundel County teacher please kick us off?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Jing Dai from Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I'm from Mid High School, and I teach Chinese and from 9th grade to 12th grade. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, can we have Baltimore City?
Hello, my name is Sydney Thomas. I teach at Hollibird Academy Social Studies Middle School and for Baltimore City Schools.
Thank you. How about Baltimore County?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see my TOI family again. My name is Breanna Ross. I teach in Baltimore County. I teach 6th grade social studies and world history.
Thank you, Breanna. And I do believe you are our Maryland Teacher of the Year. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct about that.
Congratulations on that
Thank you.
honor. Well deserved. Could I please have Calvert County?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny Rachik, and I am the Teacher of the Year for Calvert County this year. And I teach at the Career and Technology Academy. I teach Academy of Health Professions. So I teach in a career and technical education field. In addition to being a teacher, I'm also a nurse. I kind of have to have both of those jobs kind of align with my career path. But anyway, I'm excited to be here tonight and kind of learn from all of you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Caroline County.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Michelle Foster from Caroline County, Colonel Richardson High School, and I teach English 10 at Colonel, and I'm excited to see everyone.
Thank you. Carroll County.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn Dill, and I teach students English at Century High School in Carroll County.
I'm going to have to throw this out there. Miss Dill has taught 2 of my children, and they absolutely adored her class. So I'm excited to see you here, Miss Dill. Thank you. How about Cecil County?
Hold on, Cecil. I have to reply. Cecil, hold on. Sorry. But Miss McCuster's children are why we love teaching. They raise the most amazing people for us. We'll just have our own little love fest.
Thanks for the love. How about Cecil County?
Hi, I'm here. Hi, I'm Mary Spence. I'm from Cecil County. I teach at Elkton High School, and I teach English grades 9 through 12.
Welcome. Thank you. How about Dorchester?
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Stoops. I teach in Dorchester County at Hurlock Elementary School, and I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum of everyone who's spoken before, and I teach 2nd grade in an elementary school.
Welcome, Amy. How about Frederick?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Ryan. I'm a Frederick County public school teacher. I teach at West Frederick Middle School, and I teach grades 6th, 7th, and 8th English language learners. And I'm very excited to be here tonight.
Thank you. And I'm going to have to backtrack because it looks like our teacher from Charles County has joined us this evening, which is exciting. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, yes. Alexis Eaton, teacher from Charles County. I teach 4th grade at James Craig Elementary School.
Thank you. And next on my list is Harford County.
Hello, I'm Lauren Bird. I teach in Harford County at Hickory Elementary, and I teach 1st grade. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Welcome. And could I please have Kent County?
Yes, hi, my name is Karen Saunders from Kent County. I teach at the one and only Kent County High School, Kent County High School. I teach AP psychology, regular psychology. I'm the yearbook advisor. I also am the Teacher Academy of Maryland instructor. So I get to work with young people who think they might want to be teachers. And I'm really excited to be here with everyone. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And could I please have Prince George's County?
Good evening. My name is Adrienne Leake. I'm the Prince George's County Public School Systems Teacher of the Year. I teach at Duval High School. I teach English, and I am so happy to be a part of this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Glad you're here this evening. St. Mary's County, please. Is Miss Ryan here? All right, then I'm going to move on. And could I have Talbot County, please?
Hi, my name is Lauren Greer from Talbot County Public Schools, and I am from St. Michael's Middle High School. I teach 9th through 12th grade. I teach science and CTE biomedical science through Project Lead the Way. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have Queen Anne's County, please?
Hello, all. My name is Stephanie McKenzie, Queen Anne's County Public Schools Teacher of the Year here. I teach English Language Arts 8th grade at Seldersville Middle School.
Thank you so much for being here. And next on my list is Worcester County. Is Miss Sangwan here? No? All right, then I'm going to move on to our Prince George's County Global Teacher winner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kisha Thorpe, and I teach at the International High School, Langley Park in Prince George's County Public Schools. I teach 12th grade English to English language learners, and I am currently the Global Teacher Prize winner, and I'm very happy to be here to contribute to the conversation today.
So glad to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of you for being here this evening. So since we've introduced anyone, before we move on, though, did I miss anybody? I hope I didn't inadvertently miss anyone. Get everybody? Okay, good. Excellent. I'm not getting any notes anywhere from anybody, so I think I've managed to get everybody in there. I apologize for skipping a person here and there, but I think we've got everybody. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started with our discussion for the evening. And I'm going to put our first question out there to you, and then if you would care to jump in on our conversation, please either use the raised hand function at the bottom of the screen or raise your hand so that our moderators our staff at that can see that and I can get you called on. So our first question is, what do you find to be the most exciting and motivating aspect of teaching? So what is your why, kind of the highlight of your typical day? What keeps you rolling along every day? I'm going to need some help because I can't see anybody for hands raised.
All right, I guess I'll just go ahead and jump in.
Go for it, Kashiya.
What is my why? What keeps me motivated? You know, I teach English language learners and refugee students. So for me, it's very important for me to show up every day and motivate them with my story. Let them know that I come from the same struggle that they come from, and seeing someone that has a similar story to them is able to be successful. I hopefully use that to inspire them. So I show up every day making sure that my accomplishments transfer into their accomplishments, and hopefully, you know, they can continue that legacy and pass on that level of education forward. And knowing that I'm able to wake up every day and change a student's life with my story, with what I do best in my classroom, that's what motivates me every day.
Anyone else going to chime in? What's your why? What keeps you?
All right, this is Alexis Eaton from Charles County. I don't know that I really want to follow that. That was wonderful and so true. And I feel much the same way. It's my students, it's my kids. That's what keeps me going. Seeing them learn, seeing them grow as people, as well as academically. Learning from them and laughing with them and getting to know them individually, and knowing, how to best approach them. It's the kids. That's what keeps me going every day. That's my why.
Is there anyone else that wants to chime in on the why?
Hi, this is Adrian from Prince George's County. I'll chime in here. I want to piggyback off of that a little bit and just say that my why is that I get to be a part of a professional learning community every single day, because these kids really come to school with all different types of funds of knowledge. And so I'm really able to learn just as much from them as they are from me, and we're able to learn from each other. And I also think that it gives us an opportunity to be uncomfortable with what we don't know. So I find myself sometimes just saying, hey, I'm not sure about that. I'm going to get back to you. And then the students actually look up things and they bring it back to class and say, I think we found the answer. And so just kind of having that shared experience to learn together, to grow together, I think is what really keeps me going.
Hi, this is Lauren Bird from Harford County, and I second everything that was already said, but I think as a first grade teacher, I have a really important job with these young babies, and that is to shape their identity as a learner. And I think it is super important for us to love learning and have fun together, and they're going to leave my classroom with a positive self-image of who they are and what they're able to achieve. And I take that responsibility very seriously. But teaching is fun, and being with these babies every day is fun. It fills my bucket. They make me better. So I carry a piece of all of them with me. So yeah, they're my why.
All right. So when it comes to K-12 education, where are we missing the mark? We know it's getting us there and keeping us excited each day and what our why is, but where are we missing the mark right now? Kisha?
Yeah, even though I'm in Prince George's County, and I think even though the school system has been doing a better job with equity and inclusion, we've done so much work, we've done so much teacher training, and trying to make sure that it gets into the classroom and becomes a culture in our schools. But we're still way off the mark to some extent. There's still way too many gaps that exist between the different populations of students. I think our student population is getting to become a lot more diverse, and we have immigrant students and students of color, and who are kind of like our most vulnerable population, and they're the most underserved. And most of those schools are really poorly funded and under-resourced. So some of those schools are not equipped with the necessary space, with the necessary equipment, technology. I mean, when you think about the school that I teach at, we think about infrastructure as well. That's an issue. And so this doesn't really allow teachers to do their job and to show up and do what they do best to have positive outcomes for our students. So when it comes to what you just said, K-12 education, and and where we're missing the mark, we have to really think about how they put funding formulas together to ensure that there is more equitable distribution of funds for all schools, not just based on what the communities or the taxpayers' contributions, but really think about what students' needs are. And I think that if we really think about it in that term, we probably may somehow catch up to closing some of those gaps.
Really quick,
Michelle?
before Michelle goes, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Mr.
I
Chaudhry.
need to ask follow-up questions. But Kashiya, I wanted to ask you, what on a very tangible sense, like if you could snap your fingers and make one thing true in every high poverty school that you believe right now it is not true in every high poverty school, and I agree with you. I've only worked in high poverty settings. I've only gone to Title I schools at the 90% level. So I have very strong opinions about this. What would it be like? So you said infrastructure. So every school needs to have a X, Y, and Z? Like, what would it be on a tangible sense? I'm sure you can list off 10 things, but I want you
Yeah.
to list off one for now.
Well, let's start with technology, because that's how our students are able to access learning. And even if you don't necessarily have a teacher, technology can facilitate learning. So let's just start off with technology. They're able to access different resources, different learning tools, I mean, you can literally, in a 21st century classroom these days, you can take a field trip through your computer. So let's start off with technology. And of course, right behind technology is infrastructure to back that technology.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the rest of you, after when you explore this question, can you also like follow up with an answer to my follow-up? Just because I'm constantly thinking about what can be done tangibly in the policy sense, because that's one of the charges that I have, right? And so I'm always going to push on that. So just as a heads up. So.
And I'm gonna interrupt for 1 minute because we've had another teacher join in from Worcester County. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Arty Sangwan, representing Worcester County and I guess Eastern Shore here, Eastern Shore, Maryland. So in terms of where are we, like, where are we now and what is missing? So definitely technology is the top notch. XYZ part A feels definitely right in, as Kisha said. Also to keep in mind that now that students are back in the building, and what gap we are seeing is the gap of understanding. So we are still expected to bring students to the same level. The standards are still high, standards are still the same, but has been gap of understanding, and that translates throughout our education system. But we have not changed any. We are not looking into changing our policies in terms of how are we going to make up for that gap, whether it was schools or virtual, hybrid. No matter what subject you take, whatever middle school, high school, or elementary school you take, there is a gap of understanding in terms of content. And while we are still struggling to bring those students up, everybody to the same level, our expectations are still same to meet that markup by the end of the year. So as expect, like, what is to be, how can we solve that? And is for the curriculum instructors or supervisor to look into the instructions that have a tangible expectations, that what is that we are looking into in terms of accommodating that growth in subject, in understanding, in content.
Thank you. How about Michelle?
Hi there, also from the Eastern Shore of Maryland. That is a perfect segue into what I was going to say. We have kids that are re-entering into the school system that, yes, are behind, but also socially and emotionally and mentally and traumatically behind. And we are putting them back in a lot of situations, at least in my situation, we are putting them back into a school environment that is very much similar to what they left in early 2020, but not accounting for that loss of, as Ms. Sangwan said, that loss of the gap. I would also add to that the loss of their ability to be present educationally in the school without having that trauma that we've all gone through and we've all experienced during this pandemic enforce what happens to them while they're within our brick and mortar buildings. What I see from my kids is a tremendous anger directed just at life in general for what we've all endured, and to not acknowledge that, and in what way, I other than social emotional learning and trying to bring forward all that science that we all know works, but without acknowledging that for these kids, we can't move them forward because they still have to deal with what we're going through now. And I think that is a huge barrier to their learning loss from the last 18 months, and also where we need to get them by the end of this year.
Thank you. Amy, can you chime in for that elementary perspective?
Surely, I was going to start off with saying I'm just going to bring the elementary aspect to that conversation, because even though I'm teaching second graders who are 7 and 8 years old, I agree that that learning gap is there. I've spent all of my years in education in early childhood, from pre-K and now in second grade, and it's breaking my heart that I feel like we have such strong teachers in the profession right now that are spending their all trying to make sure that these babies are ready for all the learning that is ahead of them. And even with all the resources that we have and the extra time that we're spending, I still know that I am sending kiddos to third grade at the end of the year that are not going to be on third grade standards. And the second to third grade transition is such a strong one, because I'm the last year of teaching them how to read, where third grade is the beginning of reading to learn. And I know that there is going to be multiple kids that are going to third grade without the ability to read, no matter how much work I put in or my colleagues put in. And I am already upset and not sure what their education is going to look like in 3 years and 5 years and 7 years if we're sending them to those older grades without those basic skills. So yes, I agree that middle schoolers and high schoolers right now, they have had the gap too, but these kiddos with their young minds, these sponges that they usually are, the sponges are not soaking in the information right now. And I'm only more nervous about what that snowball effect is going to be moving forward when they do go into the upper grades. My idea to fix it, I don't know. I wish that I had the magical button. I know more hands would always be helpful, just to have the smaller class sizes and just to be able to put out what I like to say, I'd love to put out the match before it turns into a forest fire. But when you have 18 second graders around you all day, sometimes you don't get to it until it's a forest fire. And just being able to help them with all those other situations that are blocking their learning right now would be helpful. But I also know that we have teacher shortages and sub shortages and everything everywhere. So I wish I could just magically sprinkle a couple people that would be coming into our school buildings, but that's how I feel like in the elementary perspective.
Thank you. And I think as I'm listening, this is segueing us kind of into that third question that we have, because the third question is, what are the chief concerns that your fellow teachers have about your school community, and what aspects of your school community could be improved to benefit everyone? And I think that, you know, what you guys are talking about, where we're missing the mark, might meld into this question really well and help us to kind of keep moving in that. So what are some of your chief concerns and with the school community, and how is that impacting what you're seeing in the class? How about we start with Dawn?
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Breanna.
I just want to kick off just with this question, because there's so much, and I do not want to forget this point. And something Ms. Thorpe said, and I totally agree with everything that has been said. I think I just want to take it back a little bit, because one of the things that is true now and was certainly true before the pandemic, and when we're thinking at a state level, I think we need to do a better job at preparing our teachers to step into classrooms to begin with. And so one of the things that I'm seeing, and I know we've all seen in the last several years, and just always, is like the number of teachers who we are not, that the number of teachers we lose and that we don't retain just in those first 3 years. And I think so much of it, like right now, I have a new teacher in my department who is struggling. And now this year, we can all agree, is just, you know, we're in a whirlwind right now. This is like unlike any year we have ever experienced. I feel like every day I'm walking into a new situation. But I think so much of we lose teachers is not because they're not capable, not qualified, not dedicated, passionate, or purpose driven. It's because they are just simply not prepared. And it's because we did not prepare them before they were ready to step into these buildings. And I think what we're seeing, all of us, a lot of us, Mr. Chowdhury, you mentioned that you've only been in Title I schools. So have I. I saw lots of head nods at that when that was mentioned. And whether it's Title I schools, high poverty schools, what happens, what I know, at least when our teachers at our larger like public universities, they're not going and training in these schools. And even when they are, the training is very limited. It's very minimal. They're not getting that real hands-on training. So I think that's one thing. And then just combined with that is also, I think we see a real disconnect, especially now, because I think what a lot of what has been said is that what we see right now is that our students are showing up with trauma. Like everything that is happening in buildings right now is a trauma response. And it is one that like some days I am like, I do not know how to handle, like, I'm not sure what to do. So we're combining that also with the aspect of like, many of us are teaching students who we do not know and do not understand. And so we like love to talk about equity in education in the last like 5 to 10 years. Like that's our word, right? It's one of my favorite words. But what happens is like that doesn't translate into real practice into the building about what that looks like, right? Like we do equity in the meeting or the professional development or like the workshop, but it's not threaded into like our everyday practice, which is why I think so many of our teachers leave, because they come in not understanding, like when I'm coming from a community, when I'm teaching outside of a community that doesn't belong to me, and now I step into a community of students who don't look like me, don't speak like me, don't share my culture, and I'm expected to come in and teach them. How can I teach students that I don't understand, on top of the fact that I wasn't adequately prepared to do this work in the first place? And it's not because I don't love it, and it's not because I don't love teaching or love kids. It's just because I wasn't ready. And so I think we really need to look at our teacher preparation, how we look at teacher preparation, and also being really intentional about how we are integrating culturally responsive, relevant reactionary teaching, and really threading in equity into like our daily practice, right? Like not just like this strategy or this method of doing things, but it's a way, it's like a habit of how we teach. It's a matter of how we are interacting with our students and engaging with them just every day. So that's one of my bigger concerns, because I'm concerned this year about the number of teachers who will see leave again. Like we had a mass exodus, at least in my county in this past year. I'm concerned about it this year because I know if I was a first year teacher, I would struggle. Like I would be drowning right now. And so I think that's one of my real concerns, is about our teachers who are coming in. How do we keep them and how do we support them?
So really, before the next person goes, so Breanna, so for you, one thing that teacher prep schools can do a better job in is what specifically to prepare teachers?
I think just relevance. I mean, I remember I went to Pitt, Hail to Pitt. It was wonderful. I had a phenomenal and fabulous time. And I do think they did a good job preparing me, but I was really intentional at the time about like send me to a Title I school. And I also had the chance, and it's, I think because of the way my program was, I was in that same school every day for the full school year. Like I was there from the first day of school to the last day of school. And so I can't think of the word. I was incredibly immersed in that environment. And I really did take on like what it meant to be a teacher. So like my mentor teachers would leave and take days off and on purpose. And then by the end of the year, like I was teaching those classes on my own, but it was an everyday thing. Like I don't think I would have been the same had I not had a full year in the classroom beforehand. And I know what our interns now are getting, every other Wednesday, 3 days a week for a couple hours. It's just not immersive enough, I don't think.
So what I'm hearing is you did a full-blown residency. Absolutely. Basically in a school. Yeah.
And I think also, I just want to add one more thing. I'm sorry. I think also we need to send our pre-service teachers into the schools that they're going to be at, right? Like it's really nice to be at like the lab schools, the really wonderful schools, the high performing schools, the blue ribbon schools. But like that's all of us here are teachers of the year, and we're all phenomenal, and not all of us teach in those places, right? And we're phenomenal in spite of. And I think we want to make our new teachers phenomenal in spite of where they are. And I think that starting with like the real gritty of what it looks like to be a teacher.
Absolutely. Thank you. Rachel, you want to go to the next, please?
Yeah, Dawn, how about you chime in on this one?
Sure. I think one of the things at the high school level that we have noticed is the regimented piece of our days. And as teachers, of course, we all know that we teach to the bell, we eat to the bell. Sometimes we eat in the middle of the hall on the way to class. But what has happened is our kids were so loose for so long, and then we've shoved them back into this box, and we're like, we expect you to be able to just go from class to class to class and just adapt. And we're having a hard time with it as well, teachers that I'm talking to in our building, and the kids are struggling. So I think in a small scale type of a way, if we could stretch and be a little more fluid with the schedule piece of things, where we could allow students, maybe we have 5 minutes between class at my school. Our school has 1,200 kids in it. It's a pretty big school, campus wide. And the kids can barely get across the building. They have no time to pee, they say. And so I just think if we could give them even 5 more minutes, even each class would be great, or a chunk of time in the middle of the day to just like breathe, de-stress, take some brain breaks, do mental health minutes, something like that. Because I don't, like everyone has said, these kids have trauma, we have trauma. We're trying to take the kids' trauma, it's stressing us out, and there's no place in the day to deal with it. And I feel lucky that I teach English so that I can sort of talk through that stuff with my students a little bit more than other contents. But I just feel like we have not addressed it in any sort of full-scale way that could really help the kids. Like each day, how are we, what are we thinking, how are we feeling? And we don't have time to do that in the days.
Thank you. Sydney, I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Really quickly, so I make sure I heard Don correctly. So what I heard in terms of a tangible practice is build in within the school day time to basically explore and support mental health and other types of needs. That's what I'm hearing into the school day, basically.
That would be great. And of course, in order to do that, we have to give up something. So I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it about the whole, we're not taking the kids from here to here, but we would have to all be okay with, and I know we're all sweating, thinking about where would those minutes come from, and we'd have to give them up from another place to do that. Yeah.
It's either give up or extend. It's one or the other, right? So yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Sydney.
Hello. So I would say one of the main concerns that I keep hearing from first-year teachers, veteran teachers, and everywhere in between is the lack of time that teachers have to prepare. So specifically, I'm talking about time to actually do lesson plans, grading. It's like the expectation is that in order for you to be successful and do those things, you have to take time outside of the school, and not just a short amount of time, but an extensive amount of time to actually prepare those lessons for students and to be prepared for the day. And I feel like there are a lot of things on our plates as teachers, and maybe some things can be removed. Some things are repetitive, maybe particular paperwork or certain things that can be removed that can help to give some of that time back. So I would say that is probably the most reason why teachers this year are so stressed, and not just first year teachers, like teachers of every different kind of year. So I would say that would be the main concern. Specifically to social studies, I would say there is like a lack of, I don't want to say time, but I think that there needs to also be a focus just as much as there is on ELA and math and so forth, to also embed social studies and also give a chance for it to be done in an equitable way so that we aren't omitting certain voices. So let's hear about, Black stories in history, Indigenous stories, Latinx, Asian, so forth and so on. So making sure that we include that in history, and starting before high school, starting before middle school. So including that as young as, pre-K, because it can be done in an age appropriate way. So I would say those are some of the things that immediately popped into my head in relation to things that are concerns, and possibly some things that could be changed to kind of shift those different things.
Sydney, what do you think is something that's redundant that exists in your day-to-day now that could be cut down on to give back some more time? I mean, I always think about that question, right? Like, I was a middle school and high school teacher. And so, I have different sections. And like I said, my kids were 2, 3, 4 levels behind, and there's a lot of planning in that. I was fortunate to have principals who did job embedded PD. So during the school day, I had hours to plan with people, right? And we actually worked together. But, then there's the grading piece around it, and conference periods never just seemed enough, period. So I'm just curious, what would that be other than give me less sections and give other people, like move from 6 to 4. And I know that's an answer, and, we can always say that, let's reduce that. And I hear you loud and clear, but what else could it be on a tangible sense that, if Dr. Santalise is listening right now, she should listen.
I guess it depends on each different district and different schools, but some of the things that I can think about is, like, for example, a lesson plan. to me, you can create like a slideshow or something else, some other type of presentation, because like a lesson plan, like I'm just gonna speak for myself. I don't go to a lesson plan and use that. Like I actually use the tools that we're using in class. It's planned and it's there available for anyone to see. So that could be something that can help to reduce some work time during the day. I also think about, I can't even think about specific paperwork, but I just know that there is a lot of paperwork. It's just lots and lots of paperwork to kind of say, hey, I am doing this thing. Here's this paperwork to prove that I am doing this thing. And I need you to do this paperwork just to show that I'm doing this thing. But it really serves no purpose. It does not help the students. So I think maybe reducing the amount of paperwork and the time spent on that, even if we're talking about professional development, I think it should be adjusted to fit teachers' needs and wants at the time, and not just, hey, this is a professional development day. You must go to this day. Perhaps some of those days you can have built-in time to provide teachers with time to catch up on grading, to do some lesson planning, to have conferences, co-plan and so forth for co-teaching. So different things like that, you can still not necessarily remove the responsibilities of what teaching is, because that's definitely not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we can be just strategic and we can kind of change what we do to make it, like I always say, work smarter, not harder. And so that it does benefit, because I'll have more time to give this, you know, this amazing equitable lesson in history to the students, and be able to do those one-on-one conferences with students and, you know, provide much more specific feedback on assignments for students to revamp. So I think taking that time to be useful in other ways that will be valuable to students in our school community as a whole.
Just really quick show of hands. How many of you still go to professional development as mandated required that you know for sure you don't need? Like, this is not going to help me. All right, that's all. Let's keep going. Sorry, Rachel, you can keep going.
That's okay. I was popping my hand up on that question too. So moving us forward a little bit, let's talk about what strategies you employ to accelerate student learning or achievement right now. You know, we've talked about a lot of the things that are missing, but I know that in spite of all these things that are missing, you are moving kids forward, and you're probably finding some go-to things that are working with kids right now. Can you share some of those with us?
And if you can be very specific, because I'm going to bottle this up and I might turn it into policy or might inform teacher preparation, right? And this is something that people need to practice on the front end. So the more tangible you can get, right? I'm sure you can lift off like 20 things you do, you know, in the classroom. Sometimes within an hour, you are doing 20 different things. But what is one you're like, you got to know how to do this well in order to work with kids? What would you share?
I apologize. This is Alexis Eaton from Charles. I just wanted to go back for the last question before we get too far going. So many things that people were saying just really got me. I'm just nodding and saying yes, yes, yes. One of the things that I really think that we can look at from a top-down kind of perspective is prioritizing. So as we said, like social emotional learning, restorative practices, all of those things have, you know, and equity within the classrooms and equity training, trauma training for teachers. All of these things I feel are very important and teachers should be aware of, should be able to really thoroughly learn in order to empathize and understand our population. But what I am seeing is it's here. You should be doing restorative practices circles. I don't know when you're going to do it, but you need to do this. Here's a social emotional learning platform or program or idea. You need to find time to do it. So I think, and then almost as teachers, many people feel that they're going to get in trouble because they chose to do a restorative practice circle during reading or during social. I teach elementary school. So during any time when we're supposed to be teaching something else, so it's almost like it's been pushed and it's been trained, but without giving the actual time within the school day, which again, like you said, something has to go, something has to be extended, you know, a large change has to be made. But if that is a priority from our state, and for each of our schools to be really focusing on and understanding that our kids can't learn if their amygdala is in chaos, right? So they can't function. They're not going to progress if we can't teach them emotional control. So those kids that are in the midst of trauma, no matter how great we are, we can't move them forward without helping them there first. But it almost feels like as teachers, we just have to squeeze it in. It has to be really quick. So what I'd like to see is some kind of priority coming out, some kind of where's the give and the take, because trying to do it all is not working. So
Just really quickly, so you guys know on time. I really don't think these are an hour. These really should be an hour and a half. But just as a heads up, I'm gonna hang out till 6:30, and I want to ask the questions. If those of you who are still gonna be here, I appreciate it. If not, then we'll end it. But Rachel, if you need to also go, let me know. I'll take over asking questions. But I would like to get to them. But just as a heads up, this also happened when I did the student panel, and I'm like, no, I can't end this right at 6. I gotta go a little more. So just as a heads up, but I totally respect your time because you have everything else that you're doing. So just as a heads up, so you guys have it on time. So Rachel, do you want to ask that question again?
Yep, I will ask that question again. And it's, what strategies do you employ to accelerate student achievement and learning? In all of these problems and challenges we're overcoming, what's working for you in the classroom? What are those things we can teach others to help us reach kids? Stephanie, I know you're putting a lot in the chat, so I know there's a lot that you want to say, so go ahead and chime in, please.
Yes, ma'am. The one strategy to make students achieve in the classroom is your teachers taking care of themselves first. A teacher who is exhausted from a 10 to 12-hour day that's supposed to be an 8-hour day, trying to make everything equitable, even though the curriculum and the resources is not available, trying to find these things and make literally wheels from stone is something that drives student achievement. So when we're talking about, and I had a professor back in college who always told me that teaching is a career of heart. We talk about our kids and how we want to make sure that they are prepared as they go on to the rest of their learning. We own that. We take ownership and pride in our students' learning. So student achievement is directly connected to our teachers feeling like they are making a difference. And right now, because of the gaps we are seeing, because of the social emotional state, the trauma that we are seeing, the heart is being hurt. And so our teachers don't know how to respond to that. So one of the strategies that we have to employ, that we must help, is our teachers. That's the one strategy that we can do to keep our teachers retained, to make sure that our teachers aren't covering classrooms during their planning periods and acting as substitute teachers, and to make sure that our teachers feel like they are heard. Our students are coming at us with multiple years. I just had a diagnostic done on many of my kids. My kids are between 3 to 5 years behind where they were previously in the last year before COVID, which was 5th grade for my 8th graders. So 3 to 4 years behind already. So I'm expected to raise them up and prepare them for high school because they're going on to 9th grade next year, which is terrifying. So I'm doing all that I can, but I'm taking ownership in that, and that's weighing me down. So one strategy that we have to employ is helping our teachers and promoting their self-care. That is something in the classroom that's not like an active strategy, I would say. That's more of a top-down strategy that needs to come out. But in the classroom, personal relationships are everything. That is the strategy that we have to promote. Our kids have been isolated and felt like they have nowhere to go. They've lost their safe havens, the schools, for years, and now all of a sudden they're back and they're no longer safe havens. We have all kinds of different traumas and different things that are going on inside and outside the school because the kids don't know how to relate to one another. So we have to build these personal relationships so that the kids feel like they are being heard as well. So I would say, hands down, the strategies we need to employ from the top down are the fact that we have to create personal relationships with these kids and teach teachers how to do this. This is not something that a lot of people naturally are able to do. And to make sure that from the top down, we are telling teachers, take time for yourself to fill your bucket, because you cannot teach from an empty bucket.
Thank you. Jing Dai?
Yes, for teachers, self-care important when we recharge ourselves, so we be able to be energized and positive to serve our student, and truly we all care about our student, and we have the energy to surround around our student. And for me this year, I feel most important is for me have a one-on-one and eye-to-eye conversation with each single student that help me build up the relationship with the students and also show my care to them. It's just us, between us, and they can feel your heart, they can feel your care, and to even based on the content, even just like in the class, you just one-on-one, like tutor him or her the math or the Chinese or Spanish, any in based on content, but the student can feel your care, and the eye contact encourage him or her to stay on task and to get the confidence from each single teacher. So that make me feel that this year most important to our student. Give them the one-on-one time with the teacher, and they know how much you care about them. The achievement is the second. The most important is your support to them. They know how much you care about them. They, as long as they know that, they will work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So important. Lauren?
At the beginning of the school year, I teach high school, and I asked my students an anonymous question, and I asked them, what's one thing you wish adults would understand or could understand? And they answered things like, we don't even know how to talk to each other. You throw us in group projects or in groups, and we don't know how to communicate anymore. And I think when we were planning into the school year, I think all of us educators were happy that we were going to go back in the classroom and that we were going to see our kids all the time and things were going to be better. And we knew that things were going to change. But we were never given any like how do we change that? And that moment, I was like, I know I needed to do things differently, but I didn't know where to start. How do I start? I teach high school, and like others had said before, we're so regimented by the bell, and 72 minutes are up. So I started like just taking a step back and a breather. And if we are going to make this right, I think something extraordinary like that I think could be tangible, or I don't know, if we could even treat the beginning of a school year, next school year, I don't know when this could happen, where as almost like an entire state, we treat our first week of school as like a retreat, where we come together as students and teachers, and we're working on the relationship building. We're working on those social emotional skills. And we're not worried about making sure we get through Unit 1, because how can my kids learn when they don't even, as a CTE teacher, some of my expectations and objectives are about collaboration and communication. And if they can't even do that, normally, how are they going to communicate biomedical ethics, right? And, just being able to take that step back, because I think all of us can agree, we know we need to do it, but especially as a upper level, middle high school teacher, we don't have circle time and time to that's structured like that. It's like, where's that bell ringer, and like let's get moving. And I started doing that because I just realized my kids and myself, I needed that, because one of the things I missed so much when we were all virtual was that just casual conversation. And until we are able to just communicate as human beings, there's no way that we as teachers are going to be able to communicate like our craft and what we are supposed to be teaching them when we're still learning just how to talk. And so that's my suggestion, to like think big, think outside the box, something so systemic where we would say, this is the week, this is the day, these are the days to do this. Because just, I think was Alexis was saying, just here or there, like it's not authentic. And so that's kind of one of the strategies that I've put in place to just take a step back and slow down. So, I'm very comfortable if one of my administrators comes in and sees my students playing Candyland, which has happened. My 17, 18-year-olds are enjoying a board game for the first time, and their electronics are away, and they are just having a conversation for the first time in a couple of years. It's pretty powerful to watch, but it's also pretty sad when it's not happening too.
Thank you. And keeping in this vein, and I'm not necessarily moving us ahead, but I'm connecting us to another question. And I'm going to connect us to number 7. And that is, how would you describe mental health support resources in your school community? And how are your students and teachers faring emotionally and socially as they're returning to school? I think all of this is really melding and connecting together. So let's kind of keep the conversation going in that vein, and let us know how things are going with that. So can I hear from Jenny, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lauren, for what you just said, because it actually ties in right what I was going to say, and exactly kind of leads into this question. The social, emotional, kind of mental health aspect, I think, I know I'll speak for me and from what I'm hearing from everybody, we were completely unprepared for that. We were completely unprepared for the trauma that we were going to encounter. I have had students be rude to subs. I've never in my life had a student be rude to a sub. And I've had that situation this year, and it really has shocked me. So to answer your question, Rachel, about what kind of mental health support, we have essentially no mental health support in my building. And I'm not saying that from a school-wide, from our county, I'm just going to say it from my building. We have very, very, very limited mental health support. And so really the mental health support for our students comes from our teachers. And so to kind of piggyback what Lauren had said about, and kind of your previous question, Rachel, of what are we doing to kind of close gaps and what are we doing to help? My strategy, my tangible strategy has been to be intentional about fun. And not from a perspective of kind of turning a blind eye to the mental health components and kind of the trauma that our kids have been experiencing and that we've all been experiencing, but recognizing that, you know what, let's remind kids about the best part of school, and let's be intentional about fun, and let's take that time to do board games and activities. And I played last week Whack-A-Wall, where I put review boards, and I have 17 and 18-year-olds, where I put words on a wall and I gave them all fly swatter, and they were like whacking this wall, and they had so much fun. Just being intentional about that, because the mental health trauma aspect is something that as teachers, I know I was blown away, just totally blown away. And we were not prepared as educators. We were not prepared really to even know what we were walking into. And so I guess my kind of wisdom, advice, thoughts is, let's be intentional about fun. Let's be intentional about those conversations. taking the time to say, you know what, my content right now is not as important as this conversation I need to have with this kid. And I totally agree with Lauren of just saying, you know what, pause. You and I need to have a conversation. You and I can work through this content later. And so maybe the question we're asking ourselves as a state maybe should not be, how do we close gaps? Maybe it should be, how do we get our kids healthy enough to learn? And maybe that should be kind of our driving goal right now. So.
Thanks, Jenny. Lauren from Harford County.
Hi, thank you. My hand, I never put my hand down after the last question, so I don't want to go too far back, but I feel like we're all struggling. Our students are struggling with mental health. We are struggling to say we're not, I think you all know the meme I'm talking about. To me, self-care is more like fold in the cheese. Like everybody's telling you to fold in the cheese, but it's just crazy. So I think my number one thing is that I'm trying to meet my kids where they are and not where I just wish that they were. And so that's requiring me to learn how to teach something I have not taught before. It requires me to talk to my colleagues and vertical team and plan and learn how to go back those steps. But then that also means I'm working harder than ever before, teaching myself how to teach the things that I've not had to teach before. I go home, I'm also a mom and I'm a wife, and I'd like to stay a wife and I'd like to be a great mom. And so I'm working hours and hours and hours. If I take that time for self-care, then I'm not the teacher I need to be for those students. And I don't think anybody is recognizing that that's the choice. You can say self-care all you want. You can offer me an option to do something mental health related during a PD day, but I'm not ever taking that choice because I'm here for my kids. And so again, I don't know the answer, but I know people are struggling, and we're trying to support each other the best way that we can. But the gaps are not going to close just because we wish that they were. So I do agree with the getting healthy. And I think from an elementary perspective, I do have more, because I have these kids all day long, I have more time to build those things in. And right now we're eating in our classroom. And so that's what we're doing. We're having those discussions around the dinner table while we eat. But not all of my colleagues have that. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take just a moment because it's 6 o'clock or slightly after 6 o'clock. And if we have any colleagues here today that do need to leave at 6, and, because I know we all have families and children and husbands and other lives going on. And if there's anyone who does need to leave at 6, but hasn't had an opportunity to share some of their thoughts about where we are social and emotionally, what some of their go-to things are to help us get our students successfully moving ahead and making progress. Is there anyone that needs to go that wants to chime in? I want to make sure we give everybody an opportunity. Jenny?
Thank you. I've been listening to everyone speak tonight, and I think I know that I'm with a group of exceptional teachers. And when we're looking at systemic change, I'm not giving up this mic because my lights are on a timer. So I'm going to walk with my Chromebook here, but I'm in my classroom. So if we're talking about systemic change, I think we need to look at our teacher population as a whole, right? And right now we're talking about people who've been teaching for a while and are super creative. And I think someone said we're at the top of our game. If I can distill down to one word, what I think we need in public school right now, it's respect. And we need to respect our students so they will respect us. And I've heard you say that tonight. And having those relationships with students and taking time to have fun and realizing when they're not in the right state of mind to learn. But we also have to respect our teachers in order to expect them to come to work every day and give it their all every single day. So I know this group of teachers comes every day, even if we're not taking those opportunities for self-care because someone's waving a self-care flag at us. And even if we're not feeling our best. We're still coming to work and we're still giving it our all, but we need every single teacher to do that. And we continue to put more on the plates of the teachers. And after this pandemic, we have so much to do that aren't even really official duties. Day in, day out, we need to take care of our students' social, emotional well-being, and that takes time. And we continue, sometimes I feel like I'm putting a fire out with a water gun. Like, there is not enough time in the day, even if I did put 12-hour days in 5 days a week, there is not enough time to do what the state requires me to do as an English language learner teacher, and what my county requires me to do as an educator, and take care of my kids the way that they need to be taken care of right now. And that does not make me feel respected as a teacher. So that is my little word of wisdom here this evening to everyone, is we have to respect ourselves, our students, our families, because we do tend to kind of point a finger at those families, and they've been through quite a bit as well. And the people who are making these rules and policies, because we've not done this before. Nobody came into this year saying, well, we know that we need to do this, this, and this, but we're just going to not do it. As I heard some of you say earlier, we weren't prepared, but not because people weren't doing their jobs, because we have never done this before. So we also need to show respect for our administrators and the people making the decisions. If I could say that to my students, and I teach primarily 8th grade, and the trauma that I see happening in the building, not just the trauma that they're bringing, but what is happening in the building this year. If I could just say, please, just respect each other and respect your teachers and your families. And if they would listen, I feel like that would be a perfect world. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jenny. And you've given me an interesting segue there. Parents and families, how engaged are parents in the education process right now? And how have you managed to be successfully engaged with your parents? And can we scale that out large scale? Is there a magic bullet that you're working with that's really working for you that you think would work to scale across the state? Okay. Oh, Adrian, haven't heard from you tonight.
You heard from me earlier, but yes, something I would say, I actually took this from my own children's school. They do collaborative conversation stems that they send to parents. And at first I said, man, I don't know if I'm receiving this well, that there are, you want to teach me about how to talk to my kids. But as I opened it up, decided to have a little bit more of an open mind, it really asked some really focused questions. And what I realized they were trying to do is to get me as a parent to reinforce what they were learning in school, and to see if my kids could repeat it back, right? And then as a parent, if that's something I understand and know about, right, to actually support them. So I start having access to the academic language they were using inside the classroom to teach something. I had my sons, pull out something to show me they were proud of, right? And so I think that that's something that I took to the high school level, and I start sending it out to my parents so they would understand exactly what I'm working on and how I'm teaching them, so they could be a part of those conversations as well. And I think that that has been something that I will continue to do while I'm a teacher, because I think it just works wonders. Because even I've seen the parents bring that language back to me in a parent-teacher conference and say, I saw we y'all were working on theme, and then you talked about, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? That my parents were that focused on what was being said. And really, it's a quick blurb. It's like a sentence or two. It's nothing to overwhelm them, because we know that parents have a lot on their plates as well. And that's something I'm going to continue to do.
Thank you. Let's see. Now I'm going to throw a little something out there. I don't think I've heard yet from Mary or Karen. Do either of you have anything you want to share? I don't want to stick you on the spot. We can wait and grab another question, but I want to make sure we hear from everybody and make sure everyone has at least a little bit of a chance to share, unless there's a better topic. So thumbs up me if you're like, I'm good, I'll get you on another topic. or put your hand up if you want to talk on this one. We're good? All right, then we're going to move on to Kashiya, please.
Yes, when it comes to when it comes to parent engagement, I think that's one of the things that we do pretty well. I know in Maryland, we have a lot of community schools, and I'm actually a proud community school educator liaison. And we do have a great community school coordinator at my school. And in the past, before we became a community school, our parent engagement was next to nil. You know, my school particularly, we have refugee and immigrant students. And so a lot of those parents don't have a lot of time to take off. And it's really hard to ask parents to become involved when, you know, they have other children they have to care for, they have work, they work late hours, and so on. And so we have, as myself and the community school liaison, we started thinking about different ways we could start engaging parents. And one of the things that we really started doing is we created a resource center. And the resource center opened us up to a whole nother level of parent engagement. Now we have parents coming in the building in the middle of the day. We have parents coming after school. Parents are more involved because they are coming into the building and they're speaking to more teachers. They're experiencing us one-on-one because they have an opportunity to come into the building to actually get something. So we offer wraparound services at our school, and we make sure that we are providing for our families and students, whether it be personal hygiene needs. We also have a food program where parents come and pick up a box of groceries every Thursday. And one of the things that is definitely something that could be replicated is consistent need assessment. So we do a need assessment every quarter to find out what our parents' needs, and not just our parents and families, but also our students. And so we use our community school funding, or we do partnership in the community, or ask for donations or write grants to make sure that we equip our community resource center with those different things that we know that our community of students and families need at that time. So I think that's one of the things that will definitely cause parent engagement, because it makes them feel welcome. It gives them something in the building to come, a reason to come into the building. Not only that, but to know that the school is providing itself as a resource to the families is important to them as well, because the school is taking care of some of their needs. And so the school becomes an important part of their lives. And so they see it as an important part of their children's lives as well.
How long is the resource center open? Is it open as the same hours as the school, or is it open later into the evening?
The resource center, so what we do is we have parent volunteers. So we try to open it during the daytime, so parents who work in the evening can come in during the daytime. So at one point we had it open from around 10 to 1 p.m. And then in the evening, we'll have it open around 2:30 to 5 p.m.
Got it. Yeah.
And sometimes on weekends, but when we have weekends, we'll do like a little survey and figure out which families want to come in, and then we'll schedule the time for them to come in within that block time to get service.
Got it.
Okay, Amy?
All right, everyone. So I have a ton of notes from all the past questions. So I apologize in advance if this is a little scatterbrained, but I'm going to try and pull myself together with all the notes that I have everywhere. First and foremost, I want to come at this from a completely different perspective. And I say this because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm aging them in the slightest. However, I am only 28, and this is my 7th year of teaching. So I feel like I have a very strong connection to those teachers who are about to come into teaching or are within their first few years of teaching. And just to speak, I believe Jenny was the one who was mentioning this before, but I am personally a little bit nervous about what education is going to be in the future. I am seeing less and less of people wanting to come into the world of education. I'm seeing less and less of the little girls like me who were 3 years old and teaching to their doll babies and wanting nothing more than to be a teacher and had every desire when they were in elementary school to help others and become that teacher. I'm seeing so many amazing educators who are at the age where they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and deciding about going to have a family of their own and moving on to that stage of life and not sure how they're going to sustain the work that they do in the education in the classroom right now and maintain that next area of life that they're striving to go towards. And I'm just very nervous about that aspect of where education is going with all of these young educators ready to look for another place to go. I know that in the chat box, there was mentions about going into administration for different money and different things. And don't get me wrong, I think that monetary benefits for teachers is something too. However, I just think it's the time that's involved. The amount of teachers that I talked to today that decided to take that mental health break and not do anything over their Thanksgiving holiday these past couple days, and who came back to work today and just feel like they're absolutely drowning, is not okay. And the amount of teachers who are spending 10 and 12 hours, yes, I agree with Breanna that our teacher preparation needs to increase within our state. And I loved the idea about the full year of student teaching because that's something I was able to do as well. However, I know that there's a bunch of wonderful teachers right now who, regardless of their preparation, were highly prepared and just have so many things that are on their plates to make that fun day for their children, to build those memories, to create all those things, and are just absolutely drowning. And I want to talk about too about the self-care that people are stating. Teaching, I feel like, is one of the hardest jobs to take that self-care. I would love to take self-care and say, I need to take a day tomorrow. I don't need to, but just in theory, to take a day tomorrow, but to prepare to not be there is probably more difficult than to actually just go in and do it. And I feel like so many teachers are feeling that way, that to take that mental health break and prepare for every 22 seconds of our world when I don't even know how to write down what I do in a day to be able to tell somebody else to do it. I agreed with somebody in the chat box shared that we aren't getting the time during the day to do all the planning and preparation we need because every one of our spare moments is being handled to talk to that baby who was at home with somebody who said something to them the night before, and you just want to have that one-on-one conversation to help them with the friendship quarrels that are happening in second grade because they don't even know how to talk to each other in second grade, let alone moving forward, and everything. One of the other things that I wanted to mention, I'm sorry, like I said, I'm all over the place, but I had lots of notes from all the different questions, was about the parents. In our school, we are using a program called Seesaw for Schools, and that is allowing us to share with our parents pictures and videos of the day, and also creating a platform where we can send messages back and forth, which is so much easier than being able to pick up the phone at the end of the day. But I even wish I had more time to bring in the parents into our classroom. I feel like school is becoming something that as many parents aren't seeking for their kids to excel at. And I think they have a block of, oh, well, they're learning that new math or they're learning that new way of speaking and I don't know how to help my child. And if we brought back the parents and being able to build their success within school, I think that would really help us out as well. And then the last thing, sorry, one more thing, about all the kids that are having fun and just taking those moments to play the board games and stuff. I try and do that in my classroom all the time. And it is so sad to me, the 8-year-olds that do not know how to play simple board games and the 8-year-olds that do not know how to appropriately have fun just with others or just talking to each other. And I don't know if I have the solution to any of those problems that I mentioned, but those I feel like are the things that are right now on your educators' hearts and minds, and things that really need to be addressed to make sure that our education program continues to succeed in the future.
Okay, now we are at 6:22. How are we doing with time? A lot of people are starting to drop off. And so how many of us are like, hey, I still want to hang for a few more minutes? And how many of are like, okay, Rachel, it's kind of time to wind this up. It's dinner time and it's been a long day. So is there anyone that has anything burning that they really need to get out as we start to wrap things up? Sydney is like, I'm burning. All right, Sydney, bring it.
Yes, I was just going to add that often I think the question is posed that, are parents engaged or do they care about education? And I think that the question is absolutely yes. I think that in addition to making sure that we are culturally responsive to students, we need to also be trained to be culturally responsive to parents and students, other people in their family as well, because that's also a connection that is very key to make sure you're building genuine relationships with students and their families. I know in particular at my school at Hollabird, we have a large EL population that speak Spanish. So using Language Link, for example, has been a way for me to be able to keep in contact with those families to let them know what their child is doing well, or what other things they can work on, and being able to connect with them. And just also in other ways outside of EL students, Class Dojo, just not for the points, but for communication purposes. Some parents prefer text messages, but I think actually listening to students would be helpful, but also listening to parents and seeing what are their needs. Because I think too often it's a misunderstanding or, hey, parents don't care, but have you ever thought about, well, maybe they have to work late and it's not within the school hours. Maybe there's some other option that can provide them with the information that they need, that they can get it at a later time. Or maybe instead of an in-person parent-teacher conference, perhaps there can be a Zoom meeting or something. So thinking creatively to make sure that we are including parents and not just making this sweeping generalization that parents don't care or parents aren't involved or parents, don't want to be involved in their child's education. And then also when they do come into the classroom space, I think that we should, kind of leave the education jargon to the side and speak plainly so that parents understand exactly what it is that we are talking about when we're talking about what their child does well or what supports their child may need, and making sure that they understand that. And not only that, stop talking to parents, but stop talking with them, getting their input, getting the questions that they have, what they feel is needed for their child, or what ideas they have for the school community and what they can bring to it. So I think those are just like my burning thing, is just to kind of frame it as, not in a negative way that parents don't care or they're not involved in education, but reframing it and saying that they absolutely do. And I do say that for my school community, for the students at Baltimore City Public Schools and their families, and then also as a parent myself, I want to make it very clear that I do care about my child's education. And it's not necessarily a right way that a parent should be doing a certain way, but let's meet parents where they are and get their input to tell them what they need. Instead of telling them what they need, ask them what they need, ask them what they would like to see. So that's like my burning thing that I had to just say before we just shut it down.
Sydney, that was great. And I think we're going to wrap up one last quick one from Breanna, and then I'm going to wrap things up.
I'm just going to pop in because I fully agree with everything Sydney said. And I thought the same thing when I read the question. Like, obviously parents care about their children and obviously they are engaged with education. That is just a non-starter. I don't think there is a parent who doesn't care about what happens to their child in school, out of school. And Alexis mentioned it, and I'm so glad she did, because that's exactly what I wanted to say. And I think it brings back this piece that Sydney mentioned about being culturally responsive with our parents and our families as well, is that I think what's really important for us to know, especially in our communities of color, in our disenfranchised communities, and our marginalized communities, so many of our parents and families are coming from experiences where education was not positive for them. And now they're entering into this role as an adult, knowing that school wasn't positive, or that those authority figures were not positive roles in their life, or that school did not look the way that we think school should have looked for them, or that they think school should have looked for them. And I think that's something that's really important for us to consider when we're engaging with our families and we're thinking about how to best engage them. I've been doing a lot of research recently about what schools look like for Black children pre desegregation. And one of the things that schools did a very good job at, and I don't know what this looks like top down from the state level, but one thing that was really true about schools, especially for Black children, was that schools were community centers, where it wasn't just about like, I come here to go to school. Parents also came there. It served as like a food bank, and it served as a place where you can go get social services. And I don't know how we do that, but Ms. Thorpe mentioned the idea of community schools. And I think especially in our communities and not necessarily our communities of color, but our communities, our high poverty communities, having schools serve as a center for the community is really important, because it automatically gets parents engaged with what's happening in the school. They're there and they are present, because it's not that they don't want to be. Like, it's never that parents don't want to be engaged. It's never that they don't care. That is never ever the answer. But I think we need to think about how can we have the school best serve them. That is our job, and that is what we are here for. And not just like, I'm here to provide you education, but schools should really serve as wraparound places for our communities.
Wow, everybody, this has been an amazing evening of discussion, which I probably could sit here and do for like hours, but I really need to respect everyone's time and make sure we're doing some self-care. But it's given me so much to think about as a professional and as a state board member, as we start to think about our strategic plan and how we're going to implement the blueprint and where we need to focus our energies. And your contributions and insights from across the state and across different levels and across different content areas is so invaluable to this process. And you lend a really critical lens to our work. And on behalf of the board, I would like to thank you very much for your time and for these incredibly open and honest conversations that we've had this evening. It has just been amazing to me to be back with my toys and having these really rich discussions. And I hope that you'll continue to share your voices and expertise as we develop and refine the strategic plan and we look to implement the blueprint. But I would be remiss if I didn't let us have one more hear one more time from Mr. Chaudhry and whether or not he has any other questions and any other information he'd like for you before we go this evening. But again, on behalf of the board members, you guys were incredible tonight. Thank you so much for these conversations.
So not going to be too long. One, I'm going to definitely save this entire chat because there's a lot of just policy and solutions and a lot of things embedded in that chat. So my team listening out there, we need to make sure we save that chat. In terms of just, like I said, this is one of many engagements leading up to what I hope to be the department's strategic plan and focus that I'd like to publish, before fall of 2022, like just, whether it's 5 or 6 things that the department will just obsess about. And so, but before I do that, right, I want to make sure that we engage the heck out of everyone and really understand from student, teacher, parent, community stakeholder, what it is that we need to get right and do better at scale, right? I often like to say, the answers are not a mystery. I mean, they're not, and it's just about doing it better at scale. And you guys know this better than anyone else, right? Right. It's about scaling your impact and scaling it across other teachers and schools and administrations and policies. So that will be my focus. So please do not be shy in reaching out to me. Please do not be shy in emailing. I do plan to visit all of your classrooms. Just give me a moment. I'm getting there. One thing that I do, I don't know if you guys know, I do shadow students. I spent like half a day with them. And so I've done 7 so far. I've done all of the Western Maryland, and then Southern Maryland, and I hit up Frederick, and I'm slowly going to get everywhere. So I'll take the classes, I'll do the assignments. So I've seen all of the amazing things that are happening, but I've also seen that time just taking a moment to, not talk about content, talk about their lives, talk about the moment, or talk about an incident that happened. And that was a very powerful moment because frankly, at that point, the standards or the content is not what matters. What matters is what's the conversation of the moment. And there's a lot of skills developed in that. So I know you guys know that. So watching you guys do that has been great. And again, like I said, this won't be the only time, and we will keep going. I will obsess about best practices, and I will definitely rely on you guys. Please help me continue to create spaces that I can speak and learn more from everyone, especially on the teacher front. And every topic, beginning teacher, induction, preparation, growth plans, how we, you know, compensation, everything I want to pick your brain on. And I'm not kidding about that. But what I'm going to always push is how do we turn it into practical policy and things that we invest in, because we have to ultimately operationalize it, right? So, and so I'm going to need your help with that. So please, 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 please do not be shy. And I'm looking forward to keep going. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, everybody. And again, this has been our teacher roundtable with the Maryland State Department of Education. And we are so pleased to have all of you here this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Keep sharing your voice. We need to hear from our teachers. Have a great evening.